This mutation is called Train of the Dead, and it is being played on Oblivion Express. We have 3 mutators active. We have Darkness, Outbreak, and we have Walking Infested. So Train of the Dead. The other name for this weekly mutation is called Blizzard Forgot to add a weekly mutation to the list, and we are back to weekly mutation number 1, which is this one. Now, because this is a last minute cast, I'm literally casting this game 30 minutes after I have played it, or at least started queuing into that game. So I started this game about 30 minutes ago, finished it, and I'm just casting it right now from the Asian server. I decided to go for Stetmann over here. Now, full disclosure, I'm not a very good Stetmann player, and it has been very clearly pointed out to me when I stream. So I wanted to feature Stetmann because a lot of players do not play Stetmann on the random queue and can really do the weekly mutations with Stetmann, so I just wanted to showcase some of his play over here. Mastery wise, I've gone for the Gary cooldown reduction, the stat zone bonuses, and the morph and evolution rate mastery. And for Artanis, he's gone into roughly even splits in the shield overcharge, guardian shell, and energy regen and the warp speed mastery. And he's put 17 points into the spear for doing energy mastery here, which will allow him to start clearing his expansion a little bit faster. You can see the first spine crawler is already out, and this will be to initially deal with the Outbreak mutator, which will be spawning some infested turns throughout the course of the mission. Now, one key timing for this mutation, or at least this particular mutator, is the 20-minute mark. After 20 minutes, aberrations will start to spawn from the enemy structures, and once these aberrations start to spawn, that is when it can get a little bit difficult. Now, you can see one of the advantages of playing Stetmann is that he actually semi-counters the Darkness mutator with his satellites. So his satellites do provide vision for him, and it's very different to the Afraid of the Dark mutator, where you need to have your camera in location. You can see that this is providing a little bit of value for Stetmann, and just being able to just spread these set zones across and just getting a little bit of vision to see what's coming and what the enemy composition is. So that is one thing about Stetmann play on Oblivion Express, just spraying these satellites all around the area, but it really helps a lot when you are dealing with the Darkness mutator. Now, because there needs to be some initial investments into the spine crawler and into some of the other infrastructure that is required to ensure adequate defenses, it does mean that Super Gary will be a little bit delayed during the start of the game, but in general, when you're playing regular brutal games, you kind of want to get Super Gary out as quickly as possible, which is basically as soon as he spawns. As soon as Gary spawns, you should be able to have the resources to upgrade him to Super Gary. You can see here, even Solo Gary really has no problems dealing with his first attack wave, and eventually he'll be converted over. Artanis has gone already for his Twilight Council, and I think he's basically going to be doing a Dragoon Immortal build, which is basically, again, the standard build for Oblivion Express. One of the things about this weekly mutation, Train of the Dead, is it is a weekly mutation, but it is not difficult to the level of some of the other weekly mutations, so it is a little bit more manageable, and it does allow you to try out a little bit of strategies using on a game where you're dealing with something that is slightly harder than just a regular brutal game. It's a really good one if you want to try and practice your strategies and see how well you can adapt to some of the more difficult weekly mutations in the game. You can see now Gary is going to be converted up to Super Gary, and these guys are going to be having a reasonably bad day. The expansion is already out for Stetmann. Expansion is a little bit late, so it is not really too bad, but we have a solar bombardment being dropped down, and solar bombardment basically means this train gets one shot, and one final E-Gorb is basically going to go and clear out all the infested that are being spawned here. Production-wise, there is still no production here for Stetmann. He's just macroing up right now, and the idea is, you can see the spine crawler just getting a lot of value in holding. These things will not last forever, they will need to be repaired eventually, but for now they'll be fine here. And you can see the Stetmann now already starting to take out the gases over here, and he'll be doing a lurker build. So one of the really fun parts of Stetmann play on Oblivion Express is to go for a mass lurker build, and when you can see the enemy composition in your raiding party, you're basically dealing with a ground composition, and it is a really fun build that you can try and do with your lurkers, and it actually deals an insane amount of damage. And I think what I should probably do at this point is show the auxiliary stats here. So you can see this is the train damage that has been dealt by each player. So this first train was basically taken out by the solar bombardment, but pay attention to this one. Once the lurkers start coming out, and you just see the damage output these lurkers actually have. So far, Gary has been able to deal with the random attack waves that are spawning, and as you can see, he's usually having no problems dealing with any of that. And again, this one spine crawler here, it will need to have some extra defenses at some point, but for now, it's not really too bad. We have a bunch of Zealots standing on the front line here just to deal with any of the random infested Terrans. And again, it's not really too difficult at the start of the game, but after the 20-minute mark, which is the important breakpoint for the Outbreak Mutator, that's when aberrations start to spawn. So, the drone got randomly poked around. One other thing also that is important to note is that when you're playing with Terran, you will get nuked very frequently on this mission, and one of the things that can make it a little bit difficult is when you have the Outbreak Mutator with the aberration spawning and smacking your static defenses, you're probably going to end up losing your static defenses and you're going to get nuked at some point. So Terran is probably not the most ideal composition to deal with. If you are a newer player, if you're slightly inexperienced in co-op, and you are struggling with this mutation, you probably do not want to be going up against a Terran composition. Maybe a ground Protoss kind of composition might be a little bit easier to deal with, because you can set up some adequate static defenses, and there's no risk of you getting nuked if these static defenses do not hold against the attack wave. And you can see these lurkers now right there are just going to be attacking away. Unfortunately, I do not think the upgrade is done yet. Yeah, the focus strike algorithm upgrade is the one that deals a lot of damage for these lurkers. But you can see the lurkers are doing a reasonably good job already in just using their spine to deal damage with this strain. But once these lurkers actually get that upgrade, that is where the damage output will start to skyrocket, and you'll be able to see that once the upgrade is done. So this upgrade will probably not be done by the time the train goes down, and you can see Artanis already ready to deal with this. And now the train has gone down, there is basically a bunch of infested that ended up spawning, but you can see these zealots with their whirlwind upgrade actually being very useful, and they're being able to clear out pretty much all of these units without any problems. There is now an attack wave coming up, and Super Gary will be jumping forward, and you just see the value from that one E-orb right there. Pretty much wipes out everything in that attack wave. And that is one of the strengths of Super Gary. Like, one of the strengths of Stetmann is just he has access to a really powerful hero unit. And I think a lot of people do underestimate how good he is. One of the more experienced Stetmann players has told me, like, Super Gary is pretty much as strong as the Kerrigan hero unit. Since a lot of people do have experience with Kerrigan, you can like, he's pretty much like one of the top three. Like, you're talking about Kerrigan, Dahaka being some of the strongest hero units in the game. And Super Gary is pretty much up there. Really powerful hero unit. And now, the lurkers already have their upgrade. Their focus strike algorithm is already ready. A few Hydralisks are there as well, and these things will eventually be converted over. You can see there is an solar bombardment onto this train, and now you can see just damage output here from these lurkers. These lurkers are just going to be queuing up their focus strike algorithm, and just like that, the gap has been really narrowed from these lurkers, just from that one damage output there, that one skill from those lurkers. And you can see Super Gary now ready to just cast another Eagle Orb here just to clean up the infested that spawn from the trains, because these trains do indeed spawn a lot of infested units. And you can see that we have a lurker over here and a lurker reposition over here, and this is basically there to deal with the aberrations and eventually the ghosts that will be spawning as well, or ghosts and then eventually the aberrations, because the ghosts will start to attack you at, I think, around the 12-13 minute mark. They start to want to nuke your base. But you can see these things doing a really good job here, but as you can see, these structures do take damage. If you have a Swan ally, it might be better for your Swan ally to put down some static defense, because Swan structures can be set so that they can re-heal themselves when they get a little bit low, below 50% HP. But you see here that bonus objective train has gone down, and now the next set of trains will be spawning, and this will be the double train wave that will be coming up. And this double train wave is going to be a little bit difficult. There's just an attack wave over here, some Zealots jumping in as well to just stall this attack wave, and now Super Gary is in position, and he should have really no problems dealing with any of this. Some of these lurkers getting shelled away by the siege tanks, but Artanis' Guardian Shell keeping them alive. The lurkers are going to borrow and re-heal now under the green stat zone, and everything is fine right now for Stetmann. And now we have the double train wave spawning, and this double train wave again is going to be escorted by, I think, a 6-6 or 5-5 escort wave, which is, it's pretty scary. But again, you see just 2 Eagle Orbs over here, and that's pretty much the whole attack wave pretty much gone. And now all that is left is a bunch of siege tanks, and siege tanks are not really going to be doing very much. There's going to be an air escort as well. I think there should be a bunch of battle cruisers that'll be there. But again, nothing really Stetmann can't handle. Just using Super Gary, having a ground composition does make a huge difference. And now take a look at the damage as these things get into range of the train. And you just see the damage output just start to skyrocket, and this train just completely melt under the damage of these lurkers, and these lurkers now are going to be repositioned to try and target this next train. Artanis has already dealt with the escort wave, so all that is left here is for Stetmann to clean up this train. So Stetmann is going to reposition his lurkers. The lurkers are going to burrow, and then they will start to attack this train with their focus strike algorithm. You can see over here it's always starting to trigger, and that is the damage output that has been set onto these lurkers. And now there's just a bunch of Hydralisks and some Zerglings that are just added to the mix here just to tank and provide some kind of a meat shield for these lurkers. These lurkers are kind of expensive. You really do not want to lose them unnecessarily. A few more Zerglings over here as well, causing some problems, but nothing that these, or a few Marines causing some problems, but nothing these Zerglings can't handle. And all in all, seems to be okay. There's a random irradiate from the science vessels. So one of the things that does happen is because Stetmann is using these lurkers, these cloaked units, Amon is going to send detectors from around the map to try and, you know, detect these units. So you'll see random ravens and science vessels popping around everywhere. And another shot again from Super Gary, pretty much wiping out this attack wave. But as a result, what happens is when these science vessels cross something that's biological, the AI logic triggers for their irradiate, and it will actually cause the zealots to get irradiated. Now, it's not really too much of a problem because Stetmann is using these green stat zones as well to keep his ally healed up and good to go. So it is actually reasonably okay for these commanders to just have these burrowed units around. But that's something else to also take into consideration. Amon's detectors are aggressive units, so he has the science vessels and the ravens. So the science vessels have the radiates, and the ravens have the seeker missiles and the turrets. And that can also be a bit of a problem when you're playing on certain missions, so it is something also to bear in mind. It's one of the other reasons why Terran is such an annoying composition to deal with. You see this ghost over here now, getting ready and really wanting to nuke this. This next train is out now, and again, Super Gary just casting his Eagle Orbs all the way through, but Artanis' solar bombardment has already cleared that out right now. And Stetmann is trying to deal with some of this stuff. Unfortunately, one of the lurkers has gone down right now, and Stetmann has not actually used his lurkers to cast the Tunnel of Terror algorithm onto this train, so these lurkers were basically sitting over there doing nothing while Stetmann was trying to deal with this part. And this is basically the part in the game where things start to go awry for me. So, like as I said earlier, I'm not really a great Stetmann player, but as soon as things like that happen, I start to get a little bit frazzled. And I think my plan was to try and move some of these lurkers back into position, but I think I forgot to unhotkey them. And what might have happened is that I initially positioned them over here. That one guy just got completely wrecked by those lurkers. But I think what happened is, like, I forgot to unhotkey them, and then I moved them back with my army when I used my F2 key. Or at least not my F2 key, but you can see Amon scanning over there right now. But when I used the control group for my lurkers, I had them on a control group. I actually forgot to remove them from that control group, and then they ended up unburrowing, and that was when that stuff started to happen. And you'll see what I mean by that in just a little bit. And you can see now this is the value of these Steadlights. They're providing vision for Artanis. Artanis is getting some orbital strikes over, and now Super Gary is just going to move forward and pretty much delete this entire attack wave. That's one Eagle Orb gone, and that is the second Eagle Orb gone, and that is basically the entire attack wave completely melted by Super Gary. And now he's going to be moving his lurkers back towards the next position. Artanis has added a bunch of Reavers as well to the Dragoon. They provide a good amount of burst damage, and a little bit of splash damage as well to help them deal with some of the more clumped up escort units as well. And you can see, like, you can actually push if you want into this mission. As I said earlier, I'm not really that great of a Stetmann player. I tend to turtle up a lot when I play Stetmann, especially on this mission. I see now these lurkers are just going to sit and just burrow over, and now there is a nuclear launch. Okay, so apparently this nuke was not my fault, technically. I think the ghost came up on this side, maybe? But anyway, eventually, apparently I got nuked over here, and that down went my my Mecha Lurker then I think might have been picked off as well at some point. But just take a look at the damage output here again. The next set of trains as well. Top train is gone now. Lurkers are going to be repositioning down, and the Tunnel of Terror algorithm over here just being focused right onto the one card. And just take a look at how quickly the damage just stacks up here. You know, there's a lot of damage output from Stetmann's Lurkers, and this is one of the best upgrades you can get for dealing with this. And now you can see why. Oh, okay, there was a bunch of aberrations here that ended up slapping down my Mecha Lurker then. But, you know, at this point, again, Stetmann is fine. He has an army of Lurkers out, and he's going to go and reposition and try and deal with his bonus objective, while the aberrations go and start to wreck his base. But that's fine, and there's another ghost there as well. This is where things start to go awry a little bit. But as I said, I could do a retake of this game, but I kind of want to go to bed, and I kind of want to release this video. So there we go. You get to see AOM Master get nuked. You get a little bit of a dose of just a little bit of rock slapping champions as well. So AOM Master getting nuked is always entertaining on my stream, and it is always entertaining to watch as well. Now this is basically the last train wave. The second bonus objective is done, so these Lurkers now are going to unburrow and get back into position. There is an attack wave over here that is going to be a little bit scary. But again, double Ego goes through and pretty much ends up dealing with all the Marines over here, and there is now a solar bombardment. A very nice one here. Ally has realized that Stetmann might be getting wrecked here by the battle cruisers, but he ends up dropping his solar bombardment, and that'll end up cleaning out that attack wave. So all that is left now is to deal with this last train. So these Lurkers are still chilling over here. They're a little bit sluggish, a little bit lethargic, not really in the mood to move a little bit. But at some point they will be moved forward, and they will have to get off their butts and get into position to take out this last train. The Lurkers are getting a little bit blocked by Artanis' army. Just take a look at the burst damage that Artanis has. Lots of Reavers, lots of Dragoons. He's just going to focus down and just A-click those battle cruisers and just clean them up. And now that the train is in the range of the Lurker damage, just see the damage output just go up so fast here for these Lurkers. And they are able to completely melt the train before even the next attack wave comes in. These are the aberrations I was talking about. Those are all the trains gone, both the bonuses done, and that is GG.